Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Bolland. I'm here with my friend Maggie Whitehouse, and we are two mystics walk into a bar. And there's no bar anywhere around here. It's just a name we made up, and we kind of liked it. And we're drinking hot beverages of various kinds. But we are here to continue a conversation that we began last with our last episode, which was on the Beatitudes, Jesus's wonderful little preamble to the Sermon on the Mount from Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And it's all that blessed are the those folks and blessed are the those folks, that bit, the Beatitudes. And we were exploring them last time as a kind of invitation into a shift in consciousness to get ready for the big ethical teachings he's about to drop in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Love your enemy. If someone sues you for your shirt, give him your coat also, and all that terrible legal advice. And if someone asks you to walk with him 1 mile, go with him two, and how God's love falls on the righteous and the unrighteous like rain, and don't store up grain, be like the lilies in the field, and all that beautiful stuff that so many of us are familiar with, even if Christianity isn't your tradition. That's the Sermon on the Mount. But before the Sermon on the Mount is this wonderful list of 9 blessings called the Beatitudes. And we were talking about the first five last time, and we have a few to go, and we wanted to take our time with it. So, Maggie, how are you doing today? What have you been thinking about since our last chat?
Well, I've been thinking about this one, which is so difficult to interpret for most people. Blessed are the pure in heart. What does it mean to be the pure in heart? And that seems to contradict Jesus's later teaching, which is the falls on all of you, all of you. But so why is suddenly the pure in heart pulled up? And that's the one the pure in heart. Who is pure in heart? What would you say to that one?
Yeah, one could imagine. I don't come from a traditional fundamentalist Christian background myself, but one could imagine that in some circles, like more conservative circles, that might be those who have the right beliefs
Mm,
and those who conform with the institutional teachings.
yeah.
That's this business about purity, right? Now, as a fairly heathen-oriented fellow who came into Christian life quite late, I have a certain fondness for impurity, and I find the whole discussion of purity off-putting
Yeah.
because it's exclusionary, it's hierarchical, and the people talking about it always put themselves in the pure circle and everybody else is impure. It sounds pretty awful, all that stuff to me. But when I sit with it and get my own kind of prejudices out of the way, there's something about the possibility of having atoned, having forgiven others and forgiven oneself, having let go of resentments and grievances, having broken free from most of the destructive, addictive behaviors that ensnare so many of us. So, not from the lens of who's pure and who's impure, but from the lens of have you opened up enough to break free from the pull of the lower chakras, power
Hmm.
and money and
Yeah.
acquisition and greed and control and conflict. By the way, all those things are necessary too, but come up into a space of more uh, a place where love has a chance. Maybe that sounds to me like what purity might mean.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah. It is about getting to the higher chakras. And it is really good when you can mix and match these traditions because it helps people to understand where they are. It's I can't it's Kephesis or something like that, the Greek word, and I should have looked it up beforehand. But it can mean open. It sort of means open to spirit. And it's not so
Mm.
much, oh, I'm such a good person. It's actually understanding the difference between heart and ego, because I can guarantee to you, anyone who says to you, of course, I'm coming from the heart, isn't. That's
Why
ego.
is that a red flag? Why?
Because if you have to tell somebody you're coming from the heart, you're trying to tell them how good you are. When
Oh,
you're
I see.
pure in heart, you don't even consider saying where
Doesn't
you're
occur to
coming
you
from.
to
You're
announce
just
it.
doing what is necessary to do in the hope of bringing goodness to people. And you don't need to advertise that fact. So I think he's basically saying, blessed are those who don't show off.
Right, back to the poor in spirit earlier,
It
that
is. I
that
mean, it's all
theme of
very similar. And remember, he's always going on at the Pharisees for praying in public. And he said,
right.
go and do it in secret. So he's saying,
Yes.
blessed are, yeah, and actually happier are those who do these things in secret for themselves, for the right things. And you've got to get to that state in your life where you can do a good job without posting selfies all over Facebook.
Well, and there's a nothing wrong with selfies.
No, 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 but not too many selfies.
Right. There's this spot where it kind
There is
of
a sweet spot on the selfies. I get that. Yes.
but the second half of this one is kind of interesting. Blessed are the poor are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So there's this none of the others put it so directly, right? They shall enter the kingdom of heaven and so on. But you will be in the place where God is. You will perceive or know or that is a big result, I suppose you could say. And I think of pure in heart also as, um, and maybe this is very present day context to self-care, to tend to our own mental and spiritual health,
Yeah.
um, because our bodies and our hearts and our minds are the tools we use to be the presence of God
Yeah.
in this dusty world. And if our tools are dull, then God can't do what needs to be done through us. And so to me, there's a sense of being pure in heart is kind of some almost physician-like counseling to take care of yourself. This has to be integrated. This has to be empty. This has to be cleaned out for you to be any damn good in the world out there. Don't go around fixing systems
Yeah.
until you first show up in that humble, surrendered place. And maybe that's
Yes.
part of what's in play with this idea of pure in
Yeah.
heart.
In the Kabbalistic tradition, the heart represents the soul triad, and that's a meld of truth and beauty, that's the true self, discernment and self-discipline, and loving kindness and mercy. So the heart is the one that has the discipline to hold itself in kindness, in mercy, in discernment rather than judgment, and to seek always truth and beauty. I love the word tiferet, which is the place of the true self in Kabbalah, because in Hebrew it means beauty. And Keats's poem, of course, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Nightingale. Truth is beauty and beauty truth. That's all you know on earth and all you need to know.
Yeah,
Okay, so if we can be look for the true beauty, pure in heart, not glamour.
right. No.
That's a very different thing. In the modern world, we're very addicted to glamour and we have
Yeah.
Lucific tendencies in that we seek the fun and the light at the cost of anything else. So this is about, as you say, placing yourself to be the best you can be.
Yeah.
And you do see
Yeah.
God on the Kabbalistic menorah, on the Tree of Life, which was originally the menorah in the first temple. The place of the heart is next to the gateway through to God. So it's
Mm.
actually saying if you are at this level, you can see God, you can
Yeah.
perceive God, you are in direct relationship with God. Whereas if you're lower at the Sephira called Yesod, that's your ego, you are blocked from God.
Right.
You can get your gut instinct, but you can't get the God intuition.
And in earlier Beatitudes, the phrase was they will enter the kingdom of heaven. That familiar phrase throughout the
Mm.
Gospels. This seems like exactly that same thing, to be in God's mansion, in which there are many rooms. And so Jesus is always using all these sort of everyday in architectural
Yeah,
metaphors geographical metaphors to get to this place or in this house, or in this case, to see God, which is the name of the sacred reality in which we all already exist,
Yeah.
but we don't see it because it's
And
cut
again,
out by
this
ego.
is absolutely pivotal in Jesus' teaching. He's saying you can be in relationship with God. Before then, you had to go through the priest. And that's why in
Yeah,
Matthew and in Mark, the veil of the temple is rent at
yeah,
Jesus' death on the cross, because that means there is no barrier between you and the Holy of Holies. This
right.
brings God to you.
So in this beatitude, purity, then in our conversation here, purity has nothing to do with
No,
conforming to somebody else's arbitrary ethical
no,
morality code, not having your hemline too low or too high or some silly thing.
yeah.
It has nothing to do with that old-fashioned notion of purity and impurity, which again is often used by a kind of an empirical church and imperial church, I should
Mhm.
say,
Yeah,
to hold itself up as the insiders, and it's just a naked power move,
yeah.
and this is something so different.
And he follows it up with parables and stories all through the Gospels. The woman at the well in Samaria, she's not pure in heart ethically, if you like. She'd been married. She's obviously had a lot of lovers, and she's not what people would judge to be a good woman. The
Right,
centurion comes along. He is the colonel of an occupying force. He's like
right.
somebody, a Russian general in Ukraine. And yet
That's right.
Jesus says of this man, the enemy, I've not found faith like this in all of Israel. So he's always saying, and he goes on and
And
says again, purity of heart has nothing to do with society's morals.
right, the Good Samaritan story, it's
Yeah.
the he exhibits not through theological precision and doctrinal adherence, but through active mercy and kindness for a stranger, what the kingdom of heaven is and how to get there.
Yeah.
Be a neighbor,
Yeah.
and it's plain as day, as you said in parable after parable. This notion of purity has nothing to do with these external definitions or adherence to somebody else's system.
No.
That gets us to peace. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Peace is obviously better than war. I think people read past this one pretty quickly,
Yeah.
but let's sit with it and see what happens. What do you think? How does this suggestion tie into everything we've already done?
Well, I think let's go back to the streets of Minneapolis.
Yeah,
Um, to call something out, but not to call it out violently.
yeah,
And the job of the prophet is to be the peacemaker and these paradoxes again, to call it out. Bruce
yeah,
Springsteen's called it out with his new record. The
yeah.
people on the streets of Minneapolis are calling it out. And actually, in a strange way, both Renee Good and Alex Pretty, and it is not coincidence, those names. There's
It's
some
something.
destiny involved there because those names are so useful for people who are saying pretty and good. For God's sake, let's have a look at this. Sometimes Jesus is always going to make it clear that sometimes you're going to lose your life and your reputation
Yeah,
when you come into these beatitudes and live with them. I mean, I'm what's known as an edge priest. I'm an ordained Catholic priest ordained by a Roman Catholic bishop who would be excommunicated if the Pope knew, and is automatically excommunicated, as am I. But it's actually about being willing to be on this edge and to understand that you won't fit. And in the case of Alex and in the case of Renee, you will be killed for it.
yeah,
And don't think that this is fluffy stuff because it isn't. This is real serious down in the dirt Christianity. And I don't know or care what religion or faith either of those two had. They were what I would call true Christians because they embraced peace.
yeah.
I'm not mad at you.
Right. What
And
a.
probably that was a bit of a lie. She was probably scared silly, but she
I
said,
know. Just let
I'm
me
not
let me
mad
get
at
in.
you. That sums up this beatitude for me.
You know, Bruce Springsteen's song, and I just did a Bruce Springsteen tribute show last week,
Mm.
Wednesday, in fact. And when I got home, his new song was all over social media. He
Yeah,
released it while I was doing my show, and his I didn't really know this. I researched a lot in preparation for this show, and his deep Roman Catholicism
mm.
really connects him to this idea, this basic core Christian Orthodox idea, if I could say, that is the idea of martyrdom, the idea of the breaking of the bread during the Mass, that the broken body of Christ, the death of the form that God took, that through that death and sacrifice, we are washed in the blood and all that stuff, right?
Mm.
And so there's this sense that I think in Springsteen's songs, whether he's singing about Tom Joad, the Steinbeck character from The Grapes of Wrath, the Henry Fonda character in the John Ford film, who tells his mom, I have to go, I'm in trouble, and she says, but how will I ever see you again? And then he gives this beautiful speech about, well, whenever you hear a newborn baby crying, I'll be there. Or
Mm.
whenever you see cops beating a guy, I'll be there. And I just get chills even
Yeah,
reciting a few lines of it. And
yeah,
Springsteen goes to those stories, his song, The Ghost of Tom Joad, and now the Streets of Minneapolis. It's the peace. If you're really working for peace, you must sacrifice yourself, not to the necessarily to death. But Gandhi built the Satyagraha, and as we mentioned last time, so much of his attraction to the Sermon on the Mount was he was looking for real world pragmatic
yeah,
political activism advice,
yeah.
how to fight overwhelmingly more powerful force.
Mm.
We don't have wealth, we don't have weapons, but we outnumber them.
Yeah,
And so we put our bodies, as he did, on the front line and just walk peacefully without hating the oppressor, but looking them in the eye and returning every blow with love. That's the hardest combat
yeah,
there is. Any fool can pull a trigger, but to receive that abuse and make peace through the demonstration of the consciousness of love. And some of us might die in the process, as Gandhi's nonviolent
yeah.
soldiers did as well. He himself assassinated. And so it might not end well. King assassinated
Mm.
Christ on the cross. History is a long story of these guys finally getting caught up in the machine that
Yeah,
they were opposing. But here we are, uh, taking in their stories and to be emboldened to never give up on the possibility of peace.
yeah.
That again and again and again and again, we must return to the possibility of peace. Our resentments and our grievances are not our friends.
Mm.
We must use them to fuel our next steps on the path ahead. So maybe that's why peacemakers in Jesus's teaching here are called the children of God, even though, as you mentioned a moment ago, oh, wait a minute, are we creating a hierarchy here? Isn't everybody the children of God?
Yes, but you know you're a child of God, and also you're acknowledged as a child of God. The tributes and all the beautiful flowers and the candles for Alex and Renee, these are like a kind of worship. They're being lauded in a way, the way the saints would have been. We don't have saints now. We're losing our mythologies drastically, and that's really important. And that's why we do have these shrines by the side of the road in the UK. I don't know if you do in
Oh,
America
yes,
where people,
always here,
because we
always.
don't have graveyards, we don't have church funerals, we don't bury the person, we don't have a place to go, and we need these rituals. And to be able to look at somebody else's life and say, you were a child of God, is an inspiration. Now, of
Mm,
course, we don't want to go out on the streets of Minneapolis and get shot, but we will, in their honor, we will turn up with a pot roast.
yeah,
It's actually inspiring us to look at these people who do lose their lives, like Jesus, like um, so many of the saints,
yeah,
to say, okay,
the
I don't
disciples.
think I can do that, but I can do my little bit. And that's
Yeah,
all we're asked to do is our little bit. I don't have the right kind of name for that. My name, maybe actually I should have. My name is Whitehouse. Maybe I should be bringing some priests to the White House.
it
I don't
works.
know quite how to do that apart from prayer. And also,
Yeah,
blessed are the peacemakers, they will be called the sons of God. Pray, for peace, praying for peace, and to do it in an affirmative way, which says, I know the peace is there in the hearts. I
Yeah.
know it's there. Let's draw forward the peace. And the prophet who is there to help bring peace is always the one that everybody turns on.
Yeah.
If you're the counselor and you're trying to bring together two people who are quarreling, they'll soon, pretty soon turn on
They'll
you.
unite and you've created peace.
Yes, you created
Like,
peace between them.
no,
So
and
it's
this idea,
not an easy thing to do.
oh, it is not. And the idea of sacrifice and martyrdom just goes out and out and out and out because every time you eat a sandwich, you are eating the bodies of formerly living things, if even if it's just a mushroom or a piece of
Mhm.
cheese, or the flesh of a creature or the wheat of the
Yeah,
field and the bread, there is this constant intaking of the body and blood of God.
yeah, yeah,
And we are constantly in communion if you choose to organize your consciousness that way. And that is a ritual that sanctifies every moment of one's life. And for folks that attend Christian service, Mass, where there is the body and the blood, Eucharist ritual, sure, that's a moment that concretizes that idea. But really, we are in constant communion.
yeah,
And that is part of our peacemaking to say yes to that. Our life is in a way not our own private property. It is, we are gifted with this consciousness, with this body, with these knowings, these longings, and how we wield these tools in the world to be instruments of truth and justice is how we sanctify our own life.
yeah. And it's what God has given and human hands have made. Again, partnership,
Yeah,
working in partnership with God, and to offer it to people as a gesture of peace. My church has an open altar. We've never turned anyone away, whatever their faith. I
yeah, same
used to
here.
do it before COVID, haven't done it since then, and hopefully maybe do it again. I do a solstice mass, which is under the Christian format, but for all my pagan friends as
Beautiful.
they come along at the turning of the year, and they still break the bread and drink the wine and the water because it's so relevant to
Why
them that the
not?
land is so important, and
Yeah,
the Christ consciousness is in the land.
yeah,
Creation is the first Bible, as Richard Rohr says, and I just love that.
yeah. So two more.
Yep.
So number 8 is blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah.
So where do you start with this one? This is focusing now on the theme we were just discussing, the those upon whom most of the harm is inflicted.
Yeah.
Um, how does that tie in with what we're thinking
Well,
through?
it's actually saying don't be afraid to stand up for what you truly believe is right.
Yeah.
And that's probably an easier way to put it, but it says persecuted because of righteousness. Well, Alex and Renee again, and all the brown folk, all the people of color who've been killed by ICE or denied. That little boy who was in detention, the 5-year-old with the bunny hat, he's been released now. But he was persecuted. He was
Yes.
persecuted for being a little boy with the wrong colored face.
Yeah.
And theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That little boy is loved. And one of the things we money isn't the answer to everything, but have you seen the outpourings of money for all these people who've had their stories highlighted? This is
Yeah.
how people give nowadays. They can't give
That's
their
right.
time but they will make sure that the children of those who've been killed will go through college.
Yeah. We
That
can we
everything's
can
going to be okay for them,
we
not
can
not
minister
emotionally, but
we can minister to the material needs. When
yeah.
a Klan member burns down a mosque in a Texas town, I'm thinking of an incident a couple of years ago in
Yeah.
Victoria, Texas. Immediately, the rabbi and the minister next door come over and say, "You can start holding your meetings in our synagogue, in our church."
Yeah.
The GoFundMe page goes up. They needed 1.5 million to rebuild the synagogue. Sorry, the mosque. They
Mm.
got about $4 or $5 million,
Yeah.
including a few bucks for me and Lori, because, all of us just feel like, I hate this so much, I have to help.
Yeah, yeah,
And so that's the weird paradoxical way in which people who are persecuted are blessed by the community who comes in and tries to contribute somehow to the repair. And you hit on a very important point too, which is, here I am, a straight, white, cisgender, middle class male, native English speaker, that I'm not the one they're hunting. And so I have an opportunity to use my unearned advantage to make space in the middle for the voices who are mostly persecuted. And that's work for me to do. And that's in the sense of all the other Beatitudes we've already discussed, that changes me.
Yeah.
I began to decenter my own voice and just back up and leave space. And then the conversation finally starts to change.
Yeah. Well, it's like it was actually you that inspired me to get one of those little badges with a rainbow flag and a transgender flag. And I wear that every time I wear a dog collar out.
Yeah,
Every time because it's
it
vital. As
screams
far
a
as I,
message, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah,
And I've got my rainbow clerical shirt in which I do comedy and it
that's a
starts
good one.
conversations.
Yeah.
But actually, sometimes people hate it. Who do you think you are? I I put up, there's a Churches Together in Devon. This is the county I live in the United Kingdom. Churches Together in Devon. And I put up I'm doing an afternoon to discuss Reverend Dr. Matthew Fox's creation spirituality, the fact that
Beautiful.
creation is the first Bible, and we are commanded to take care of nature. And I got, you're a vicar, you should be ashamed of yourself. How dare you? What are you doing all this pagan stuff on the land for? And I just thought, I must be doing something right.
Exactly. No, precisely. So, the ninth one is an interesting one because to me, the first eight draw our attention to some of the maladies that we need to release. But the
Yeah,
ninth one, I think, offers a pretty spot on prescription about here's what you need to add in, or
yeah,
here's how you need to open up in a different way. So it goes roughly like this: Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you
yeah,
falsely on my account. And here's the advice part: rejoice and be glad, and your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way, they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So here we get this call to, I know things are hard for a thousand reasons, but don't lose the thread of gratitude,
mm.
r- rejoicing, joy and gladness. How does that hit you after all the first eight Beatitudes?
Well, it is tough, isn't it? Because our egos don't want anything to do with this. I don't want to be persecuted. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want somebody to come up to me after a gig or a service to say, oh, you can't do that. I actually once got shouted at while I was doing a sermon, while I was talking about the centurion, because I was saying we don't know so much about what it means. I'd done the whole thing about the centurion being from an invading nation in an occupied land, but
Oh
also
dear.
the word that is used is pace. Now that can mean servant, son, or catamite, which is young gay lover.
My,
So we've actually got that whole thing wide open.
lot going
And
on
one of the
here.
congregation who was retired minister stood up and went, "Ooh," at me in the church. And it was one of those pivotal moments because
It's
the rest
like,
of the
yeah,
congregation were going, shoot, what's going to happen now? And I
no.
just, again, I think I was a peacemaker, but I just said, I'm not saying it's so, but the language says it could be so. And look how suddenly you've hit judgment.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that wasn't huge persecution, but it's very scary to have somebody stand up and shout at you in church.
But
But I
but but
knew at that point, I knew, no, hold to your point.
that's right.
Hold to your point.
Yeah.
And I think that's the lesson of this one, which is if you are as sure as you can be, because faith is the opposite of certainty. If you have absolute faith that what you are doing or saying is for good and for peace, you must hold to the point no matter what. And I'm sorry that's painful, but hold to your point Because if you hold to your point, you hold integrity. And when you have integrity, you are closer to heaven.
I had the privilege of participating in a kumeyaay, that's our local indigenous people here
Hmm.
in the San Diego region, a talking circle ritual, and with the talking stick, which is
Mm.
ritually passed. And so it's structured. So you sit in a big circle, over 28 of us, being led by some tribal elders on the campus of the college where I teach. It was wonderful. But the point I want to make is that structure where only the person holding the stick gets to talk.
Oh, yes.
And then it is ritually passed to us. There's no back and forth. There's no reacting. It's just you just clam up. It's all about powerful, sacred listening. We talk a lot these days about holding space.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And it took an hour to get around the circle of
Mm.
28 folks, and there were people weeping and the most amazing truth telling. When everybody makes the covenantal promise of receiving whatever you're saying without response, without argument, without counterpoint,
Mm.
people just, oh, the floodgates just open.
Yeah.
Now, that the fellow who shouted at your service, I've gotten all those kinds of reactions to things I write and say and so on. And I just sort of say, well, I'm looking forward to your book. I can't wait to hear your next album.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Maybe you could
Yeah.
give a sermon here next week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
This idea that because you stand in the pulpit or at the microphone, that you must speak in perfectly balanced ways about every nuanced perspective in the cosmos. It's absurd.
Yeah.
And, let speakers have a point of view and then you make your counterpoint. What a strange eruption to yell an objection at you during a church service. So that is a good example of someone reviling you
Yes.
and then uttering evil against you, I suppose. Maybe that's a bit dramatic,
A little
but that bit
dramatic.
about rejoicing and being glad that we are invited to not to despair, to not. Let me say that better. You're, we are going to despair, but to not live just in that.
Mm.
To say yes and yes, I'm hurting. Yes, things are broken. Oh my God, so many more people are going to get hurt before this is over. So I'm not glibly saying all is well, but it isn't well. But I cannot lose the thread that in my neighborhood, in my circles, in the work that I'm doing, there is light in the world, and our joy might be part of our resistance to
Yes.
evil. Because when you give up and fall back in despair, they win.
Yes.
Um, Authoritarianism, fascism is designed to intimidate.
Yes.
That's the reason I read a beautiful treatment this morning about that's why they hung Jesus on the cross and left him
Yes.
there.
To humiliate.
Because just like lynching, this is through the lens of a black preacher, because that's how they did lynching. It wasn't just to execute this one guy, it was to terrorize the entire community.
Yeah.
And now that we're all running around with these phones, every one of these quote unquote lynchings is publicly viewed. And what if the regime is using that?
Mm.
Um, Using small children now to knock on the door to lure their parents out so ICE can swoop in. These kinds of terrorist tactics, which are so extra legal and extra moral, we've lost the moral thread completely here in this lust for law. And that is the ultimate lawlessness. So there's lots to despair about. But
Yeah.
what if our laughter and our mockery of their ridiculous pomposity and those
Mm.
masks and the Nazi coats, and it's like a Mel Brooks movie or a Saturday
Yeah.
Night Live skit also.
Yeah.
And nothing fascists hate more than our contemptuous laughter.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something to that, right?
Oh, yes. Comedy is very, very needed at these
I don't
times.
need to
Very,
tell
very
you.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go off and read you what's at the end of the Beatitudes at Luke, which hopefully brings some
Yeah.
comfort. It's a bit retributive, but it brings some comfort. But woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. Woe
Hmm.
to you who are well fed now, for you will go hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will mourn and weep. And woe to you when everyone speaks well of you, for that is how their ancestors treated the false prophets.
Oh my goodness, that's great. I'd forgotten that bit in the
That
loop.
does give a little bit of hope. And it's not meant to say you can't go around being happy or pleased about the fact that you picked up the litter in your street. That's great. Go ahead and feel happy about it. That's okay. And, if you've got enough for dinner, that's absolutely fine. But this is pointing out those oligarchs and those people who are eating their oysters and their caviar in front of the other people because there will be Nuremberg trials after this.
Yeah, we hope.
There will be a calling out, and there will be history looking back. And the one wonderful thing about these phones, because they are so good and so bad and so dangerous, is all this has been recorded.
I know.
I know they're putting out
Oh,
AI fakes all the time, but we keep saying, this is how it happened, this is how it happened, this is the
yeah,
clarity
yeah,
of it. And there
yeah.
will be, I wouldn't necessarily say karmic retribution, but there will come good times again. The sun will shine
Yes,
again.
some
And
kind of reckoning.
yeah, and this has exposed the underbelly, the shadow.
Yeah, yeah, and
And
that's
nobody in the world now can say that America is going to lead the world in saving other countries now. And maybe that little bit of humility is what's required.
yes,
It's like the Brits had the British Empire, and of course we had immigration right, left, and centre to start with, and that gave us problems. But it was exactly what we asked for. You go
yeah,
out and take over another country, or you represent yourself as being brilliant to another country, they're going to want to come into you. And the
yeah,
very problem that America has at the root of it is we don't want you. We came to save you, but we don't want you.
right.
And the lack of integrity in that has been really shown up now. So there
Yes,
is hope of resurrection, but it has to be a
that's
new
right.
America, doesn't it?
But it only comes from the breaking apart of the body of the old.
Yes.
And the seed must die to go into the ground for there
Yeah.
to be new life. And
Yeah.
so we're in one of those cycles and we're not in control, but we have tremendous influence
Yeah.
and as farmers, as it were, to tend the land, to tend one another, to keep
Yeah.
the seeds dry, and that is our work, not to dictate what is next, but to co-create
Yeah.
what is next. And the Beatitudes seem to be this beautiful counseling session about how to increase our spiritual
Yeah.
psychic readiness to
Yeah.
be a part of the new heavens and the new earth
Yeah.
that Scripture
Yeah.
also
And
talks
they're
about. That
cyclical
is,
too, because you get to the end and you think, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't possibly do all that. I really, really can't. And then you get back to, well, blessed are the poor in spirit. That's
yeah,
exactly where you are right now. I can't do this. I'd love to be able to do this, but I can't do this. Oh God, help me do some of this. So you've gone round and you start again and you can go through them again and again and again. And maybe if you can just do one little bit of one of them a day
yeah,
and be the blessing.
wonderful.
Be the blessing of the pure in heart. Be that
Yeah,
blessing for somebody else, for an animal, for a plant, for a human, for the planet.
that's
And
right,
I'd
and that's
also
enough.
say, I really don't understand why we don't wake up every morning and go, thank you for light that gives us light. Thank you for air that I breathe. Thank you for the water I eat, drink. Thank you for the gravity that keeps me on the earth. We take it so for granted. And I
No,
think these
right.
Beatitudes are just to go, oi, stop taking it for granted.
That's my morning prayer before my feet hit the floor is the Meister Eckhart's idea, that prayer. If the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that would be enough. And I
Would be
just
enough.
I just say thank you. And I sometimes don't even know who I'm talking to,
Yeah,
but to be in that consciousness of blessing.
yeah.
Can
Two
I can I
things
end with a little
oh,
poem? I
you
don't know if this
may
is
from your
gonna I
book.
don't know if this is gonna show up, but no, it's all blurry on my screen. It's a book of poetry by Fred Lamott. He writes this beautiful. He's
Yeah.
a Pacific Northwest guy. His book is called Savor Eternity, One Moment at a Time. So this is the first poem in the book. It's very short. It's called Gentle. It might tie all this work together. Gentle by Fred Lamott. A gentler world begins in the way you touch your heart. Be soft with the light inside you. Caress your body with this breath. God is nothing else but the place where the sun comes up in your chest. You are the glimmering destination. You are the golden honey daubed on the bread of the ordinary.
Mm.
Whatever is perfect, whatever is heavenly, begins here. And it seems like the Beatitudes are helping us be here.
Be here now.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Peter. Another
Amen,
wonderful session
Maggie.
with you.
Beautiful. I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for
Thanks,
joining us.
everyone.